ethno-specific weapon. Clearly. And the Chinese didn't miss a beat on that. And believe me, they've probably been working around the clock ever since to come up with a Caucasian-specific weapon to be used against us if we try it again.
Well, they probably, I mean, their original plan was they were literally planning to invade North America. They figured that, the last thing they expected was a 200 million man Chinese army going over the North Pole and grabbing them, That was their plan until they realized that all they had to do, instead of something so drastic that would lead to billions of deaths, was just stop buying U.S. government bonds. And they did that, and then the Japanese also stopped buying them, and then everybody stopped buying them since December or September 2008. And this is why Obama was going out there begging and kissing and bowing all over the place. He's begging for money. And he's not going to get any. And so what they've been doing now is they increase the amount of troops in Afghanistan because they need to. The only money they have now is drug money. So the CIA is expanding their drug operations everywhere. They even sent an agent to me with 70 kilos of marijuana saying, we want to contact the Yakuza because we'll sell this and we'll give you a bunch of money every month. And I'm saying, hey, I'm not a drug dealer. What are you doing, Go away. Leave me alone.
70 kilos would be several big suitcases.
Yeah, and then, many millions of dollars every month. I guess they were trying to bribe me, but this is how desperate they are. I mean, you have a drug dealing gang that's pretending to be your government. It is the most ridiculous situation imaginable. And fortunately, it's coming to an end.
Well, I hope that optimism, that Fulford optimism, is warranted. We will see. Time will tell. Stand by, Ben, if you would. We'll be right back.
Mm-hmm.
Fulford, who is enjoying well, it's Christmas Eve over there, but it's still daytime. But big night over there in Japan.
It's also a big night. I mean, like I said, the big one is New Year's 2010. And we're hearing there's a lot of important financial deadlines in January, which the U.S. will not be able to meet. And so if we're lucky, knock on wood, this whole nightmare will start collapsing, even to the point where the brainwashed people will see this in the U.S. In January at the earliest.
Well, we would hope so.
I want to explain how this works, because everything happens at a very esoteric level.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean is, I've seen many coups d'etats in South America. And it usually works like this. You have the president, the finance minister, and the general. And they control the country. One day, maybe the president gives the general the evil eye or something. The general says, uh-oh, I think he's planning something against me. So he calls the finance minister, and he says, listen, I think the president's going to purge us. So they say, okay, we've got to act first. And the general says, well, I know a colonel near the Capitol who can seize the presidential palace and the television station. And the finance minister says, well, look, I'll fly to Wall Street and get permission from Henry Kissinger. So the finance minister goes to Henry Kissinger, and Kissinger says, okay, give me a few more banana plantations, and you go right ahead. And so then the colonel goes in, and there's some shooting around the presidential palace and around the TV station, and suddenly a new face appears on television and announces everything's different, and that's the first time 99% of the people know what's happening. And it still works like that at a very global level. So I knew that Copenhagen would fall apart because I knew they had no money, because the check had been stopped. But no one else, and people just, they don't know until we have these pompous people, delegates, saying to the third world country, we want to do all these things, but you're going to have to pay for it. And, of course, they say no, and finally everybody else realizes things are falling apart. So that's the kind of level of information you have to have these days to understand what's going on.
Right.
And there are a few key players who are jockeying around as we talk, as we approach the end game. But
okay, this has been a very bad decade. It started with 9/11 and ended with this crash and Bernanke's rising to the position of one of the most powerful men in the world.
There was a big multi-billion-dollar check that came due on September 12th, 2001. And in order to not pay it, the feds, they blew up all the evidence and started this fake war on terrorism.
Well, this had to do with the comptroller of the currency at the Pentagon.
Yeah, it had to do with, I think I've told you this story before, but it's worth repeating because this is where it's all coming down to.
And $2 trillion went missing. And the auditors allegedly were right smack at the place where the missile hit the Pentagon.
No, the $3 trillion was money that was spent on building up these private armies like Blackwater and stuff. It was to make an end run around the Pentagon by creating this sort of U.S.-style SS known as Homeland Security. That's where the money went.
Part of it.
So, yeah, part of it. It was a fascist coup d'etat. The other part is that, I think on our very first interview, I talked about Rockefeller bringing out his, hologram machines and starting his fake end of the world scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're seeing that now. I mean, we see these pyramids filmed over Moscow. We have this great spiral in Norway. And everywhere we're seeing these things. I'm sure those are Project Bluebeam holograms.
I'm not, but that's fine.
But, it could be something else.
I think the technology exists to do almost anything. I don't happen to believe that spiral was anything more than the Russian Bulava rocket fired from a submarine that at a very high altitude began to lose its gyro stability and began to spin, and its rear end
And what was that blue smoke that we saw?
Blue smoke? That was a light.
Blue kind of.
Was it light?
I think it was a HARP. It coincides exactly with the location of the.
If there hadn't been a rocket launch from a submarine, and I hadn't seen over 100 launches myself, and when you get into the higher altitudes, that exhaust gas spreads very quickly, especially if the rocket is spinning.
Over Moscow?
That, I don't know what to make of it. That's a wild one. I've run the stories. There's apparently from Moscow.
The Pentagon sent a guy to me. He said that these chemtrails they were spraying was a kind of a reflective substance.
That's BS. It's barium and aluminum, and there's actually been human blood cells desiccated found in it. They're doing all kinds of things with it.
All kinds of stuff. But one of the things they do is they pump out reflective material for their hologram machines. And now here you are, Ben, hold on. You're close, and if you look at the patents of Bernard Eastland, what they're doing, to the best guess of the people I respect and have for many, many years, is trying to charge up the lower portion of the atmosphere so it acts like the upper portion of the atmosphere, and it becomes a great big canvas upon which many things can be done. So when they charge it up into a quasi-plasma condition, which is what the chemtrails apparently are involved with doing, they can use HARP then at the upper levels and the lower levels to do any number of things.